Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, Endless Investments. Today, as oddly as it was to me, we're going to be talking about more macroeconomics compared to trading cards. We got a really positive response from the last video, to my surprise, actually. So, I've got the next two videos lined up for our macro comparisons. And for today, we're going to talk about bonds. Something a lot of people don't really know about or understand. And we're going to kind of compare bonds to what's happening in the world. There's very interesting things happening in the bond market right now. One of those things is going to be an inverted yield curve. And we'll talk about that just here in a second. So I think the way we're going to do some of these videos is we're just going to like open and talk at the same time. And when something cool comes up, we'll just kind of mention it and kind of go in and out. So it'll just be kind of a flow. So just hang with me. Again, just let me know if you like it. I hope you guys enjoy. All right. So to start off, we are going to do this real quick because these are our Nft Spoiler Packs, baby. So we're going to go ahead and open these up. Make sure these arrive safe and sound. All righty. We got our 3 very cool Wilderness Spoiler Packs. And these are beautiful. Again, all these are just a set of a few cards. And they're going to have an actual hand-pressed stamp that says Wilderness in the bottom right corner. So nothing too crazy. But they are cool. Hard to get. Oh, ready. So, to start off with our bond conversation, something very interesting has happened. To start off, we got to understand what bonds are. So, bonds are pretty boring. Typically, you buy a bond from a municipality or the government. And the largest market is the bond market. I know that's going to be weird for some people. Here we go. All right, we did get some cool stuff in here. All right. So the bond market is filled. It's basically, you're going to get a very small interest rate, but a very low risk asset. So in that instance, I'm saying that somebody who has something like $500 million or $50 million or $1 billion, some astronomically large money, that's a very good playable card, we're going to use that one. Some astronomically large number of just money. And it's hard for us to conceptualize that because we've never actually touched that much money. But once you cross into the millions, tens of millions of dollars, it's not as easy as saying, okay, I'm going to go in the stock market and buy $10 million worth of Apple. It's not actually how it works. You typically need to have a diversified portfolio. And this was our main kicker. We got 2, I believe these are the secret rares. Please tell me if they are or not. I think these are the secret rares. We got 2 of these. We got all these pins. It was a really cheap pickup. Just a lot of fun for us. But again, back to bonds. So when you get tens of millions of dollars, you don't want it fluctuating 2 or 3% because that's millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So people get these bonds because they're assured a very secured rate. The United States federal government has never defaulted on its debt. We've gotten close, but we have never defaulted on our debt. That's why a lot of people, foreign investment, loves American debt. They buy that stuff up like no tomorrow because it always gets paid. So, having that understood, very big market, very important people and banks and wealthy people buy bonds to make the flow of money work. Okay? Another thing for bonds, if it's measured on a graph, like a long-term graph, typically what happens is bonds are inverted. So if a bond ETF goes down, that means that the payout for the bond is going to go up. And right now, bonds are paying more than they've paid in a very, very long time. And it's getting interesting because what an inverted curve means. There is short, medium, and long-term money from the Fed. All right, we got some jack-o'-lantern bombs. Very cool. The Fed is going to sell bonds. And it's crazy enough, the Fed actually buys their own bonds, but that's another, we're going to talk about that another time. That's used as a tool to support an economy. So, basically, what's happening right now is the short-term money at I think it's the 5-year and the 10-year. Right now, you will get paid more money to hold a short-term position than a long-term position. Bear with me, I know it's very confusing. That means that, let's say that right now the 10-year is paying 2.75%. Okay, the 5-year is paying 2.8%. Or something close to that. Don't take those numbers to heart. However, all right, we got some full hollow momos. Very cool. Now, with that being said, these people, why would you buy a longer term note, the 10-year, and make less money? Okay? It's very, very confusing. It's a very interesting market behavior that does not happen often, and typically it's not a good sign. That means there's a lot of fear happening in the, I believe it's the short term, and the long term is not going to pay as much. And it is very, very strange. Now that's happening right now. And just to kind of leap off that, if we're going to compare and tag these into, all right, some Nightmare, just a little bit of bulk right there. If we're going to tag this into a card game, let's say Metazoo, of course, obviously, we're going to say, all right, in a rough context, a booster box is like a bond. They have the most priority, they're the largest market, that's where everybody has to go, but they don't necessarily want it. I know it kind of sounds silly. All right, we got some Belled Buzzards. Very cool. Don't have any of these yet. So let's say we've got the booster box, right? It may not grow as fast. I know these aren't as good as examples, but they have priority. So for instance, the priority I speak of, if a company goes bankrupt, Chapter 13 bankrupt, where they're in true liquidation and they're in trouble and whatever, yada, yada, yada. If they can't get funding or whatever happens, they actually run out of money. Let's say the company has obligations to pay bondholders $1 billion for claim's sake. All right. And they owe outstanding shares for another billion, just to be fair, just to make things even. Let's say the company has $1 billion left in cash, just for our sake. After they pay all their debts, let's say they have all of the debts that are manageable, I guess. They'll have X amount of dollars left. Those X amount of dollars, when they get distributed, go to the bondholders first. If a company goes bankrupt, they're going to hold the bondholders at the top of the list for payouts. Bonds are always the most important things that can ever exist because they pay out the most successful. And when you see a bond rate go up, unfortunately, it's typically because they think that there's more risk to be assumed with the asset. So that means if the bond rate is going up for us, that means that people don't think that they're going to pay it back. And don't quote me, I'm not saying that the government's not going to pay back their loans. I'm just saying that it's not, there's all kind of bonds. They call them junk bonds. There's title bond. I mean, anything can have a bond, a surety bond. Like literally anything can be bonded. Like a bail bond. Yes, it's the same concept. When the bond is written in a corporate way, you hold the most priority. And that's pretty much the easiest way to put it. Alright, another full hollow oaks tree, crime tree. So, I hope I haven't really lost you guys. But basically, that's kind of a quick rundown on what bonds are. So, it is hard to tie this into trading cards, but I would say that, if anything, that booster boxes are like the bonds and cards are like the stocks. There's always going to be more true value in the booster box than there's going to be in the singles. And I know you've got the gambler's premium and all that stuff, and that kind of stuff doesn't really like fall into what we're talking about. So again, we're just trying to make some comparisons. Don't take all this to heart, but just know that the bond market is incredibly important, especially for the economy. Especially for the economy. In major ways, too. If you see the bond market fail, like it did in 2020, when literally no one showed up to buy bonds, that's when the Fed stepped in and said, hey guys, we got a problem. We're going to have to step in and purchase bonds so the bond market doesn't collapse. That is why the Fed buys their own bonds. It's very confusing, but in times of urgency, it can be a true lifesaver. And I'm not going to sit here and say I enjoyed everything that Jerome Powell did, Jerome Powell is the Fed chair right now. But damn if he did not steer us in a direction that didn't keep us afloat. We could have had some seriously bad outcomes from COVID, from the lack of anything moving. We really could have had some bad things happen. So consider our blessings. Consider the environment around you. If you ever see the housing market get hot, but the bond market go crazy, things may be about to get weird. So stay wise, stay vigilant, and we're going to play this as easily, well, not as easily. We're going to navigate this as best we can. We'll be here. We'll navigate it with you. Now, next time, we're going to tie in the bond rate to the interest rates. Kind of go with that. So I know I probably didn't get as good of a Metazoo comparison in, but I hope that kind of lets you guys know how bonds work. And if you have any questions, just throw them down below. Oh, that's what I was going to say. There's all kind of bonds, like junk bonds. Junk bonds will pay like 16% interest at some point because they're most likely to go bunk. So basically, the higher the interest rate, the less likely they are to pay it. So that's what I'll leave you guys with. I hope you guys got something out of this. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Peace!